Hi, I'm Jaclyn.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
Welcome back. We hope you guys are having another fantastic week. Courtney and I recorded our first monthly Q&A session yesterday for our Patreon people, so that was super fun and something new and exciting in the time of quarantine where we do the same thing every day.
Yeah. It went well. We had a few technology issues. We did about 10 minutes of it and then realized we weren't recording.
Yep.
And then when we uploaded it, something happened and Kevin's phone said, "Sorry, page not available." But my Patreon app just sent me to a video of a cat. So don't really know what happened there. But it's up. It's there.
Yes.
If you want to view it, become a Patreon. We'll do it every month.
Yes, and it was super fun. Courtney and I put on makeup and looked like, real human beings for the first time in 4.5 months. We discovered just before we started recording, because Courtney's like, yeah, I think it's been like 90 days. I'm like, no, it's been more than 90 days. It's just a permanent state of being at this point.
We're on day like 115 of March, so
yeah.
It's like March the 115th.
Yes. This is...
I did. My apartment's pool opened back up with very limited hours because they're like, if you guys do not social distance, this pool will be shut down. And it was pretty good. I mean, I would give myself an A+ for my social distancing. Other people might give a C-, but yes. From where I was in my little chair, like no one was ever near me. So I was like, okay, I'm good. If y'all are going to be like all up in each other's business, I don't care. I'm gonna stay over here in my little bubble.
Right, you're like, I'll stay in my bubble. Yeah, I had a dream last night that I was at Dollywood for some like school trip, but Dollywood was like all inside and no one was wearing a mask, and then I'm just like panicking and it was awful. And I'm like, that's what nightmares are in 2020, is you're stuck inside and no one's wearing a mask. Oh gosh.
Funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't like their masks for some reason.
No.
I went to Kroger yesterday and I saw people without, but technically it's a county mandate, and Kroger said they're making all their customers wear one. So I'm like,
yeah,
somebody please come and force this man.
I think a lot of employees are just afraid, especially after seeing like all the news stories of like, oh, like someone got shot during like trying to enforce a mask, or people just like lose their minds and cause a scene and all this stuff. So I think people are just like terrified to do anything now.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like if you go in the grocery store, if you're not wearing a shirt and you're not wearing shoes, you're going to get kicked out. So
exactly.
Wear a mask, because that's just the thing right now. We're not trying to make you a communist nation. We're just trying to not kill people. So just be a decent human and life will be better. It costs $0 to be a decent human. And if you're like, oh, a mask costs like $5, people give them away for free. Like, they're like, here, you need a mask, here you go. So
exactly. Or if you have an old bandana, or when Andrew made his first mask when all this started and we didn't realize we would need like masks for like a year, he like cut the sleeves off of one of his shirts and used the shirt sleeve, like there's plenty of options. So maybe we should have Ashton make us some Caffeinated Crimes masks. So we can... Oh, goodness.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't think we have any true crime updates. I don't think anything has really happened in the true crime world this past week. So I think we're just going to go ahead and dive in. Today is an espressode. So if you guys are new here, that's basically where one of us starts looking into a case and we see there's not really enough information for both of us to like split the research and the storytelling and everything, so we just kind of take it on our own. So it's usually a little bit of a shorter episode and one of us just tells the story to the other. So all right, you good? Ready?
I'm good. I ain't got nothing I gotta do. Just gotta sit back, relax, just talk.
Okay, so 17-year-old Taylor Behl spent Labor Day weekend in 2005 with her family in Vienna, Virginia. On Monday, September 5th, she returned to her dorm at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia, about 2 hours away from her home in Vienna. She unpacked her bags and she called her parents to let them know that she made it okay. She then had dinner with an ex-boyfriend and returned to her dorm room a little after 10 p.m. her roommate had a boy visiting at the time and asked if they could have some privacy. So Taylor said she was going to go skateboarding with some friends and would be back in about 3 hours. She took her car keys, her cell phone, and some cash with her, and Taylor would never be seen alive again. So I got my information from a 48 Hours Mystery Searching for Secrets, which I think is like a Dateline spinoff kind of thing. I'm not gonna lie, I watched it on YouTube, so, but also got some information from a CBS News article, an NBC News article, Daily Press article, a Style Weekly piece, and Taylor's mom, Janet Pelissara, also wrote a book called Love You More, so I got a few snippets from that as well. So Taylor Behl was born on October 13th, 1987, to Matt and Janet Behl. Her parents divorced when she was around 2, and by the time she was 5, her mom had remarried to a Royal Air Force officer. So they would live in England and Belgium, and Taylor would come back to the United States often to visit her father. And when she was around 11, her mom divorced her second husband, and they moved back home to Northern Virginia. So her mom, Janet, did not remarry, and she raised Taylor as a single working mom. Taylor was described as independent and savvy. She worked part-time at a local coffee shop, and she had attended a total of 15 schools by the time she graduated from James Madison High School at age 17.
That's a lot of
schools for one person to go to. But they said that she was just very, like, she could make friends anywhere, and she really just had no problem with, like, the transition. Like, she would just so easily pick right up and blend into a new school, like, super easily.
Because I was thinking if she had to come back, like, from Europe to the U.S. to see her dad, I'm like, that's a lot of time on a plane. Like, yeah. It's a lot of traveling.
And by herself a lot of times, too. Like, I think she flew by herself for the first time when she was, like, 6, and, like, flew internationally. Like,
yeah.
So, definitely the independent and savvy was something that stuck out in a lot of people's minds when they talked about Taylor. So, like I said, she did graduate high school at 17. Her birthday was in October, so she wouldn't turn 18 until after she started in college. So I don't know if that's from starting school overseas. So maybe she started kindergarten. Maybe the birthday cutoff was a little bit different when she was in England and Belgium. So maybe, I know in the United States usually like August to September-ish is the cutoff. So usually October you're going to have like an early birthday. So like you're going to turn 18 before the rest of your classmates instead of after. So I don't know if maybe that's because...
What day was she born?
The 13th.
Okay, because a guy I dated in high school, his birthday was like October 1st, sometime like early October. And his mom got like approval to like start school like when he was 4 technically instead of 5. Gotcha, so like he was in the same grade with me, but he was always like turning the age like way after everybody. So
okay. And I think that depends on the school districts, too. Like, some school districts will allow you to do an exception if a birthday is so close, versus some are like, no, this is a hard cutoff, like, no matter what. So, but that's just important that she was a minor when she went to college. Taylor loved art, especially photography and theater, and she dreamed of one day becoming a photographer. So Taylor visited several colleges her senior year of high school, and she decided on Virginia Commonwealth University because of its diversity in the city of Richmond, and it was also only a 2-hour drive away from her parents. And so in August of 2005, Taylor moved into her new dorm room at VCU. So like I said, she disappeared early September, so school had only been in session for 2 weeks before Taylor's disappearance. And so when Taylor doesn't come to her room the night after she left to go skateboarding, her roommate just assumes that she came back after she fell asleep that night and must have already left for her classes. Again, she's only known this person for 2 weeks, so it's not like she would have a good idea of like her habits and everything.
Yeah. And like you're starting college, everyone kind of just goes crazy, like trying to like redefine themselves, or you have this freedom you didn't have before, like all this stuff. So you're just like, I don't know what's going on with this person. Like, this person could just go crazy. I don't know.
Exactly. You're like, I don't know what you're doing, and I'm probably over here worrying about my own things, and I just had this boy here, and, like, I'm in my first year of classes, which is super stressful, and, you know, so she wasn't like, oh, no, something's wrong immediately. So that was Monday night when Taylor arrived home, went out skateboarding, didn't come back. So Tuesday evening, when she's not there, her roommate thinks that she's just out with friends or on a date. She's like, she just must have plans. You know, again, not unusual that you wouldn't be home.
Yeah, like you meet someone, you go hang out with them, you stay at their house, like whatever, you know?
Yeah. But Wednesday morning, September 7th, her roommate realizes that Taylor didn't come home the night before either. So now she's concerned and she's like, okay, something's not right. So she does contact the VCU police and they start putting up missing posters around campus. So the VCU police reach out to her parents in Vienna, and so her mom reaches out to the media to seek their help in finding her. Now, VCU police hold on to this missing child case for 10 days before they contact the Richmond Police Department.
Of course.
So, again, Taylor is a minor at this point. So, 10 days of this missing minor before the college's police are like, oh, maybe we should reach out to the city police.
Is it just another one of those, it's a runaway, she'll show up?
Yeah, probably.
Blah, blah, blah.
It's her first year of college. She went crazy.
The same old bullshit we hear all the time.
Yeah. So the Richmond Police Department issue an Amber Alert and create a task force composed of university, state, and federal investigators. So at this time, they see that Taylor's cell phone and credit cards have not had any activity since the night that she went missing. So police start interviewing everyone that Taylor knew. Again, it's kind of hard because school's only in session for 2 weeks, so it's like you don't really have that like core friend group yet. But Taylor was very active online with sites like LiveJournal and MySpace, again, early 2000s. So they actually...
Good old MySpace.
Exactly. So they actually go to her MySpace page and look at her friends list to get ideas of people to contact.
They're like, who is this girl's top 8? That's who we need to contact.
Exactly. Let's go through here. And actually, this was the first reported case where social media was used to find suspects in this manner.
Oh, wow.
So... they found a friend named Ben Foley that she had recently communicated with on MySpace. So they reached out to him. Do you know anything about where Taylor's been? And he says that she came over to his house that night and she was upset because her boyfriend had broken up with her online earlier. So they reached out to the ex-boyfriend, who was Jacob Cunningham. And he says, yes, we had dinner together that night, but like we were on good terms when we left. Like nothing was... like, no one was upset or anything. And Jacob said after dinner that Taylor told him that she was going to go skateboarding, which is also what she told her roommate. So, campus video surveillance footage shows Taylor leaving her dorm room at 10:24 p.m. that night. So, on September 17th, so this is 12 days after Taylor's last scene, an off-duty police officer is walking his dog in a neighborhood close to campus when he notices a white Ford Escort parked on the street. So obviously in this missing persons case, photos of her car have been posted everywhere, so everyone's kind of on the lookout for it, so he's like, let me check it out. So at first he's kind of confused because they have Ohio plates, but then he sees a City of Vienna parking sticker on the front of the car. And so then by the VIN number, they are able to determine that this is Taylor's car and someone has switched the plates on it. And again, this is a neighborhood pretty close to the VCU campus. So police use a bloodhound to pick up a scent of the car that leads to a house that's 5 blocks away. So they search the house and they don't find anything, but they ask the man who owns the house if anyone else has been there recently, and he says his nephew Jesse was there. So 23-year-old Jesse Schultz liked to meet girls at VCU, but he was not a student there. And he did fail a polygraph test when asked about his knowledge of Taylor's disappearance. But at this time, there's no other evidence to charge him with.
Yeah, because if we talk about how unreliable polygraphs are all the time, and they're not admissible in court either, so you can't use that as your defense at all.
Yeah, like there's nothing other than the scent was tracked there, which who knows
again,
how many people...
is not very reliable.
Yeah, exactly.
No offense to the little dogs who do their sniffing. They do help, but it's not reliable.
It's more like those dogs are most helpful in like a live missing persons case where they're like, we're trying to find if this person is still alive, where they are, versus trying to track somebody who's gone, you know?
Yeah, or get a lead or something like that, you know, but not like,
yes,
this is our evidence. Find him guilty.
Exactly. Yes, it's used to find further evidence. So they can't charge Jesse with anything. So they continue investigating. And then they circle back around to Ben Foley that said that Taylor had come over to his apartment that night. And so they discover that Ben had filed a police report the night Taylor went missing, saying that he was robbed, hit over the head, kidnapped, driven to an unknown location, and then rescued by an unknown man. And Courtney's face right now is exactly what my face looked like when I heard this.
What?
Like, wait a minute.
Yes. It just made me think of like a movie or something. Like
yeah.
a rock, like the rock's in it, and he's the unknown man saving you or something. I'm just like, what is happening?
Yes. So Ben says that he can't remember any of the details because he was like super drunk. So he's like, I don't know who the people were. I don't know where they took me to. I don't know who the man was that saved me. But I need to file this police report. So.
Okay, it also makes me think, sorry, but of How I Met Your Mother when Ted goes out on St. Patrick's Day and he's like, this is how the night went. And then, like, he'd accidentally called Marshall a bunch of times. And he's like, listen to these voicemails. This is what happened. So I'm like, imagining him being like, look, I was kidnapped and I was taken. And really it's like, you went somewhere with your friends. Like, is that actually what happened? Like,
Exactly. And all of this supposedly happened, like, directly after Taylor was last seen alive. So that time frame is like, oh, here's what I was doing during the time.
Here's my alibi. I was being kidnapped.
I was being kidnapped by people I don't know and no one can confirm it. Here's my alibi.
I'm sorry if this guy was really kidnapped, but that's just a crazy story.
So, of course, the police are kind of suspicious at this point, because they're like, okay, and also you didn't mention this earlier when asked about, like, your interactions with Taylor, because you think that would come to mind of, oh, well, we did this, and then I got kidnapped that night. Like,
yeah.
Okay. So, now Ben changes his story and says that he and Taylor had sex at his apartment that night, but that she went home around 10 o'clock. So now they're like, okay.
So this is before or after the kidnapping?
Before,
I guess.
Yes. So originally he just says that she came over, she was upset because her boyfriend had broken up with her, and then she left. Now they find out that he was kidnapped after she left, and now he says they actually had sex before she left and he was kidnapped. So.
All right, sir, your story's getting a little muddled here.
And because Taylor was a minor, this was enough for them to get a warrant for his apartment. So, again, it's not, I don't think it would be considered statutory rape because she was 17, but because she's not there.
How old was he?
Oh, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not in the storyline yet, Courtney. So.
Oh, okay, sorry. Because I'm like wondering if it is statutory rape, because I mean, she's 17,
he's over 18. But I guess the fact that she's not there to say what happened, so they're not arresting him for anything. This is just...
Yeah, I mean, you can't charge him unless there's the victim there wanting to.
Yes, so it's not enough to charge him, but because he admits to having sex with a girl under age 18 who now has an Amber Alert out for her, I guess that was enough to get a warrant to search his apartment.
Yeah.
So... And in this warrant, on his computer, they found massive amounts of child pornography, including, trigger warning, sexually explicit images of children as young as age 1.
Oh.
Yeah.
That is so gross. I've, like, heard this a few times about, like, child porn that young, and I'm like, I don't understand.
No.
I don't understand at all.
There's no words. No. And so Ben said that it wasn't his, and it was left behind by the previous tenant on his computer.
So the previous tenant just left his computer? I mean, guys, computers weren't, like, cheap back then. And, I mean, they're chunky. They are hard to move, but you're not going to leave it.
And if you do, if you do leave it and you find this, and, well, the old tenant's dead. But, like, no one has come for his stuff, and also if you realize that that's on there, you wouldn't delete it.
Yeah, you wouldn't be like, this computer's trash, I'm just gonna throw away the whole thing.
Or also maybe contact the police and be like, hey, I might have evidence in multiple child abuse cases, do you guys want these images? Like, okay, Ben. So Ben's looking a little fishy. So they were able to arrest Ben for the possession of child pornography while they continue to investigate him for Taylor's disappearance. Now, Taylor first met Ben when she visited VCU's campus in February of 2005. So Ben was the roommate of the friend Taylor was staying overnight with while she was visiting. And so her dad had been with her on this visit, and so he met Ben, and he said that he was friendly and impressionable, and he didn't mind leaving Taylor because she seemed comfortable with them. So, like, he didn't seem to have any concerns. And he's probably also like, okay, like, she's going to be going to college in a few months. She's probably going to have a sleepover with a boy at some point. Like, yeah, I've met him,
cannot
it's okay.
Control her. Like,
yeah. So after Taylor returned to Vienna, she continued emailing and instant messaging Ben and communicating with him frequently via MySpace throughout the rest of her senior year of high school. And she did meet up with him in person the next time that she visited the campus. So Ben was an amateur photographer, and he took a series of photos of her around Richmond, which the photos are out there, and they're, like, super eerie because it's just in front of all these, like bridges and buildings and everything that I see, like, all the time, and there's just, like, these series of photos of her around the city. And Taylor did tell her best friend Glynis that they had had sex one night, and she said that she didn't really regret it, but she just wanted it to be a one-time thing and just wanted to be friends with him. She's like, I don't really want to continue a sexual relationship with him, but they did have consensual sex at least once. And Taylor's parents would later find out that Ben was no longer a student at VCU, and was actually 37 years old.
100% statutory rape, at least.
Yes.
100%.
And he also had 2 daughters who lived in Northern Virginia with their mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot to take in. My goodness.
Yeah, so obviously
Ben.
Taylor's...
Whew.
Yeah, Ben, what you doing? So when Taylor's dad met this guy living in an apartment right off campus with a student, he just assumed that he was also a student.
Yeah.
And when you see pictures of him, he does not look 37 years old at all. So, like, they're completely shocked to find out that this man's almost 40, you know?
That's insane.
Yeah. So, a little bit of backstory on Ben. So, Ben's roommate at the time Taylor disappeared. So, this is not the roommate that she was friends with. So, he has a different roommate by the time Taylor comes to school there. So he wrote a piece for Style Weekly about his experience living with Ben after all of this came out. So apparently there were tons of adult pornography DVDs in the apartment, and Ben said that the previous tenant who had died the year before left all of that behind.
This previous tenant, man, he's...
Right? What you doing, man? But this is more believable than the child porn on the computer, at least. Like,
yeah, because, I mean, I could see if there's a previous tenant and there's, like, all these, like, consensual adult porn DVDs around.
Yes.
And you're, like, in college as a man, I can see them being like, score! Yes!
Right? Yes! I'm gonna keep all this.
Like, I can understand that. But the child porn, no.
Well, Ben also was excited about this because he's like, oh, I can just sell these so I can make some money. So he would sell these adult pornography DVDs over the internet. So the roommate said that he was constantly, like, boxing up things and, like, going to the post office to, like, send out these packages of all this porn DVDs that he's selling on, like, Craigslist or wherever you sold porn.
How much money could you make, though? Because even at this time, I mean, I remember as a kid, there was, like, the X-rated section you couldn't go into, and you could buy it there. Like, it wasn't like you could not, I mean, it's not like today where you can just go to a website, but, like, you could easily get it.
Well, I mean, but I guess if you don't want to, like, go in a store and be seen buying it, if you, like, see it on eBay, maybe that was,
true.
You know, so you see it online, you're like, oh, I can...
A little more secretive.
Yeah, I can anonymously buy this. So that's what Ben's doing all day.
Okay. How many DVDs were there?
Right? Like for this to be a
selling,
continuous
like,
operation?
Continuous, like, all the time.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah. So his roommate said that Ben would stay up all night on a website devoted to goth subculture and would make skulls out of clay. And so he said that, like, he basically would stay up all night, and then the roommate would go to class, and then usually when he was, like, getting home from class in the afternoon was when Ben would go to sleep and, like, sleep through, like, the afternoon and then wake up to stay up all night and all morning. And Ben was bipolar, and so he didn't work, and he received Social Security disability for his bipolar disorder. So that's how he was up all night and sleeping all day. Not because of the bipolar, because he didn't have a job to go to, is what I was getting at.
Yeah.
So he would frequently have young girls come over to his apartment to hang out and drink. And if you remember, Ben's heavy drinking came up on the night of his account of being robbed, and it's also going to come up later. But however, Ben's roommate said that he never saw Ben drink. He's like, we always had alcohol in the apartment, and like Ben would have these girls over, and like they would drink, and he would provide it for them, but he never himself drank.
A little suspicious.
So maybe he did secretly, but I mean, if you have friends over drinking and you never drink when they're there, it'd be kind of weird for you to drink on your own at other times.
Yeah.
So on Ben's computer, police found the series of photos that he had taken of Taylor. So police were interviewing a girl named Erin Cravel, and so she was one of Taylor's new friends from school, and she had also previously dated Ben. So she knew a little bit about Taylor and could also speak to Ben's history. So they're showing her some of these different photos from his computer to see if she recognizes anything. Like, are there any clues in here that stand out to you? So they found a photo of a secluded, like, house/camper. And so you can tell that it's, like, in, like, a wooded area. Like, it looks very rural. It was kind of run down. And it had Home Sweet Home written on it. Like, it was a Polaroid. So this wasn't on his computer. So it was a Polaroid, and it had Home Sweet Home written at the bottom. Mm-hmm. And so they asked her if this meant anything to her, and she's like, I'm pretty sure this is like my parents' property, which is in Matthews County, Virginia, which is about 90 miles from Richmond. And so she's like, yeah, like I'm pretty sure this is like, it was either on their property or like the outskirts of their property, but near where they owned property, basically. And so the police felt like this was some important clue for some reason. I don't know if it was like the Home Sweet Home or the fact that it was a Polaroid versus on the computer, but they thought there was something to this. And so they asked Erin to show them the property. So on October 7th, so this is a little over a month after Taylor's last seen alive, Erin led police to her parents' property, and they just immediately smelled this decay. Like as soon as they're like walking around the property, like the smell just hits them. So Taylor's remains were found scattered in a shallow grave. Her body had been eaten by animals, so there wasn't a whole lot left, and there wasn't anything left to determine like cause of death or anything. And there was duct tape found on the cuff of the jacket that was found on near Taylor's body. Now, Ben had a history of violent behavior. So the ex-girlfriend Erin tells police that one time Ben broke into her apartment with mace and a hammer. So I guess he didn't do anything. They didn't really tell any more details. I don't know if she, like, talked him down or whatever, but, I mean, what else are you going to do breaking into someone's apartment with mace and a hammer? Like, it's pretty obvious you have some malicious intent here.
Yeah, definitely.
And he also had several previous reports of assaults towards other girlfriends, and had actually been convicted of assault against one of the girlfriends in 2003.
Not sounding like a good guy.
Nope.
So, I might be jumping the gun here, but so he took Taylor to that property, buried her, took a picture, and then called it Home Sweet Home?
I think the picture was before.
Before? Okay.
Like, I think he saved it because he was like, oh, I like this, like, rural area. They didn't really specify, though.
Okay.
But
I was like, that is some serial killer stuff.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. It didn't really specify. But we'll get into...
Sorry. Jumping the gun here.
Always. No. So, of course, Ben denies killing Taylor. But then he changes his story a little bit more, as he has been. And he's like, yeah, we were together late that night, the day that she died. But he said, quote, his concept of time was a little lax, end quote. And that he was very drunk and high and didn't know what happened.
Okay.
So, tells investigators that Taylor asked him to pick her up at her dorm room. And so, if you remember earlier, I said on the security footage, you do see Taylor leaving her dorm around 10:24 p.m. So Ben is seen on that same camera outside of her dorm room 3 minutes before she appears. So you don't see them leave together, but you do see him in the shot 3 minutes before she comes out. He says that they went to his apartment and they were drinking. He said they drank a lot and they took some narcotics as well. His roommate was out working this evening. He worked at a local restaurant, so he wasn't home at the time Taylor was there. Ben said that Taylor wanted to do more, so they drove the car out to Matthews County because it was like a rural area where you can do drugs or whatever you're doing that you can't do in your own apartment. I don't know.
Yeah.
Now, Ben says that Taylor wanted to play a game that she called Drunk Monkey, which is where she wanted him to choke her while they had sex until she passed out. He says that she wanted him to put a bag over her head. And so he did so, and after he realized that she wasn't breathing, he says that he panicked because he's like, oh no, I'm going to get in trouble for this. So he drove her body in her car back to Richmond, parked it on the street, went to sleep overnight, woke up the next morning, and then it's suspected that he remembered this rural area that his girlfriend had showed him. And so he drove back out to Matthews County and dumped her body on the property.
So you're telling me he wasn't kidnapped? Just kidding. Sorry.
Courtney's like, hold up.
But I'm like
this did not happen?
What?
And his roommate brings that up in the piece that he wrote because he talks about how the night that he got home late that night when apparently her car is parked somewhere outside with her body in it. And that Ben was like, oh my gosh, be careful out there. Like, I got mugged tonight. And he's like holding his stomach because he says that they like kicked him in the stomach. And the roommate says for like the next several days that he would like do something and then he would like wince in pain, like where like he was supposedly hit in the stomach. And so the roommate's like, okay, so he was either making that up just to go along with his story, or Taylor fought back and actually injured him.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know which one it actually was.
Because, like, on the one hand, I could see him being like, oh my gosh, I am 37 with a 17-year-old, and this happened. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to tell. But also, like, pretty sure your charges for having sex with a minor are going to be way less than killing somebody and hiding their body.
Yeah.
Just a little foresight here, people.
Yes. And again, he says that he was just so drunk he doesn't know what was happening, even though the roommate says he never saw him drink, ever. So Ben was charged with first-degree murder, and Taylor's funeral was held on October 14th, which was the day after what would have been her 18th birthday.
Oh.
I know. So when questioned about the duct tape on her sleeve, because this indicates that she was in some way bound, which is another level to not just, oh, she wanted me to choke her, Ben says that it was part of the game. He says that she wanted to feel like she was being kidnapped. So his defense team ran with this, and they said that it was consensual BDSM gone wrong. And when someone accused them of victim blaming, and the attorneys were in this 48 Hours special that I watched, mm-hmm. and one attorney said, quote, "We're not going to put any blame on her. We're just going to put her activities out there, and that's fair."
But she's had previous boyfriends. Have any of them ever reported her wanting to...
No.
And I mean, that's completely fine if that's what you're into, but I can't imagine she's gonna, like, just go to a random stranger and be like, pretend to kidnap and smother me. Like, usually you're gonna do that with people you feel comfortable with, like, in a safe environment.
Well, she had this online relationship with him. So that comes up later where it's like, did you trust this person more than you should have because you didn't really know him, but you felt like you did? But as far as the BDSM, Taylor's best friend said that she never talked about bondage or wanting to experiment with it, and she told her that she had had sex with Ben. So clearly they had the kind of relationship where they talked about these things, mm-hmm. and she's never even mentioned, like, wanting to try anything like this. And I don't know about other people's friendships, but I know Courtney and I are very candid about these matters, so...
Yeah. I'm pretty sure if I was like, I was pretending to be kidnapped and I have a game where I'm smothered until I pass out, I think Jaclyn would know about it.
Exactly. And also, like you said, no one else that Taylor has been with reports that this is something that she's ever done. And what I feel like is one of the most important factors is that there were no internet searches on her computer about anything related to BDSM. So this is 2005. Like, how do you as a 17-year-old even know that erotic asphyxia is a thing? You know, like,
yeah,
that's not something that, in my mind at least, that just automatically that you think of on your own of like, this would be fun. Like, that's something that you hear about and you're like, oh, okay, like, I want to try that.
Yeah.
Where did you hear about this if you've never talked about it with your friends, you've never talked about it or done it with previous boyfriends, and you've never researched it on the internet? And, like, her history hadn't been cleared. It wasn't like her computer was wiped, like, she tried to, like, all of her stuff was there. And she was very active online. She was on a lot of, like, she had a blog online, she was on a lot of message boards, and there's nothing that has to do with BDSM.
Yeah. And that just makes me think, like, if Ben wanted to do it and she was like, okay, I'll try this. But again, it comes back to it is Ben's fault and he's blaming her.
Yes.
And if she has like a whole game where she's like, I want you to smother me. Like, you would assume that she would have played this game, air quotes, with somebody else. Like, it's not going to just be you. She didn't just come up like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense. But where they did find a history of bondage was on all of Ben's images. So his DVDs, his pornography on his computer, a lot of them included images that had to do with bondage and erotic asphyxiation.
And I just want to say, if that is something that turns you on, there are plenty of people who will willingly consent, and you do not have to kill someone and do it to someone who doesn't want to. You can find someone who is going to absolutely love those things. So just remember that. If you got like a something that you really like, a little fetish, there's probably someone who can fulfill that fetish consensually.
Yes, and no judgment as far as fetishes go. Like, you do whatever pleases you sexually with another adult human being who also consents to these things that please you sexually.
Yes, exactly.
That's all. And if 17-year-old Taylor had been into BDSM, no judgment. And we're not saying there's no way that a teenager could have been into this, but knowing everything that we know about her and her internet history, her conversations with friends, it just does not seem likely at all.
Especially since Ben is, like, painting it out to be that she's done this before and this is, like, her thing and what she loves.
Yes.
But there's no history of that. And so it's like, it's basically victim blaming, because he's like, well, she liked this, so it's her fault that it went too far.
So the police also reenacted what Ben said had happened, because, of course, he gave a very detailed account of, like, okay, we're in the car, and then I did this, and then this happened, and then she kind of fell off the seat, so I tried to put her back on the seat. So police got a car that was identical to Taylor's car. They got 2 police officers, a male and a female, who, like, matched, like, body size and shape and everything of Taylor and Ben. And so they put them in there, and, like, they have this in the documentary where someone is reading Ben's statement, and so they're sitting there doing all of these things. Mm-hmm. And so it's not... Again, we never know what other people find pleasurable sexually, but it does not look in any way comfortable. Like, there's barely enough room for the 2 of them to, like, be in the back seat. Mm-hmm. I mean, and for her to, like, have her hands bound behind her, and now he's got a bag over her head, and then he's like, oh, well, I moved her this way and that way. And the girl is like, I can't imagine any 17-year-old girl being like, this is great, let's keep doing this, I enjoy this.
Especially because he has an apartment that they could go back to and do this with a lot of room.
Yes.
Like, that's my thing, too, is, like, probably, I mean, even now, I think BDSM might get, like, a bad rap. But especially back then, I feel like you would not want to do that, like, where you can be caught in a car. You know what I'm saying? Like, you would be like, I need to do this, like, in a safe place, like, a safe, like, secure area, like...
And his roommate was at work that evening. It's not like his roommate was home and so they had to go somewhere to be alone.
Yeah.
Now, before the trial starts, Ben is being held in jail on first-degree murder and also child pornography charges. He tells an officer that his statement was nothing more than a cynical strategy to beat the system. And he also says that it's a big chess game, and I just made a huge move, let's see what they do. And also, in a letter to an ex-girlfriend, Ben said, I am the reason Taylor is dead. I deserve to be in prison.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. After all of these statements come out, his defense attorneys are like, look, you should probably just take a deal. Like, you've pretty much admitted that you made up this story. Like, just save us all a trial and just take a deal. So he ends up taking an Alford plea, which is really common, apparently, in all the cases that we talk about.
I know.
But if you're not familiar with that, it's basically a guilty plea, but you're still claiming innocence. So you're like, I understand that the state has enough to prosecute me for this. I'm still saying I didn't do it, but I'll take a plea deal. So that was for the second-degree murder charge, and the prosecution dropped the child pornography charges. So Ben received 30 years in prison instead of the life in prison he was facing if it went to trial. And after he was charged while he was incarcerated, Ben was later recorded saying that Taylor taunted him after he first took the bag off of her head and said she wanted him to really do it, where she was choking for air and would think she was going to die. And he says, quote, all I remember was her saying that she was going to tell her mom and call the police and say I raped her, end quote. And then he says that he, quote, flipped out and snapped, and then she was dead. So this is what he says afterwards. So now, when I heard that, my thought was, okay, maybe Taylor was consensually hanging out with you. You guys went out somewhere. You raped her. She says that she's going to tell, and then you murdered her.
That's what it sounds like to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, if you want to, like, we always want to try to figure out, like, motive. Like, why would you just randomly kill this girl? So after he says that, that's what my mind goes to, is they were hanging out.
Yeah, is that she was like, I cannot believe you did this. Like, you raped me. I'm going to tell. He realizes, she's 17, I'm 37. I have all this stuff back at home that's probably going to get me in trouble, too. Not logically. He was like, the only way to handle this is this.
Yep. And like I said, this case did bring awareness to the dangers of meeting strangers on the internet. And it was also one of the first cases to use social media as an investigative tool to find suspects. So after this case, there was a lot of narrative around be careful who you meet online. People may not be who they claim to be. And I don't know if he lied to her about his age. That didn't really come out. But, I mean, I would think maybe he did, because it seemed odd how everyone described her, that she would just willingly be with a man that was 20 years older than her.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, and maybe they just didn't mention age at all, and she just assumed he's somewhere around my age because he's living basically on campus, you know. Yeah. But yeah, the internet is a scary place. There's so many good things on the internet, but it is crazy how people can be a 50-year-old man pretending to be 16, 17-year-old boy or girl. Like, it's very scary.
Let me send you a picture of this guy, too. So you can see that he does not look 37.
And good things can come from the internet, too. Like, that's how I met my fiancé.
Exactly.
But be careful, because Tinder is a weird place. So be careful. Always meet in public. Don't go to their house. All that stuff. That's my usual, just be cautious, because there are some weirdos out there.
You gotta take some precautions. Like when Courtney first went on her first date with her now fiance, she sent us her location, so if anything happened, that way we can be aware. You just take some precautions. And I think it's a little more well known now versus how it was then.
And I mean, 2005 there were cell phones, but it doesn't have, like, right now my location is always on for 4 to 5 people I know who have my location and can track me at any moment. That really wasn't a thing in 2005. Mm-mm. And I mean, it is very likely that she probably didn't even have her cell phone with her. And you know what I'm saying? Like, you would just leave and...
Yeah. It wasn't the same kind of thing that it is now.
Oh my gosh, yeah. He does not look...
Yeah.
No.
And we'll post it on the Instagram so you guys can see it.
Looks like mid-20s, I would say.
Yeah, like college age, just finished college, like does not at all look like a 37-year-old
Is this her
man.
in the picture?
Yes.
Oh, she was so cute.
She was beautiful.
So pretty. Yeah. That makes me really sad.
Yeah, it's such a tragic case. I mean,
yeah, that is. It's really,
especially like for parents that have that fear that like something's gonna happen to their child when they send them away to college, and it's literally 2 weeks later, like she's murdered, and it's just like, and. Also, to go back to what I mentioned at the beginning, I don't want to say thankfully she was murdered the night of, but as far as, like, the investigative standpoint, like, the campus police held on to this missing child case for 10 days before they contacted the city police department. So, if she had been kidnapped and was being held hostage, like, by the time those 10 days were up, she likely would have been dead then anyway. So, I mean... At least for her parents' sake, they don't have to wonder because she was killed the night she was taken.
It was very botched. Like, if she had been alive for a while, like, you would have literally probably just not found her and realized that if you would have acted sooner, she could still be alive.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's the super sad and local tragic case of 17-year-old Taylor Behl.
Yeah. Very sad.
Yeah.
Poor Taylor.
I know.
Poor her parents, too. That's so hard.
And she was an only child, too. Aww. So, like, that's... Not that ever, like, oh, well, it's okay, you have another kid. But, like...
Yeah.
It just... It always seems to have that extra element when it's an only child.
Yeah.
Okay, Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
Okay, my perk of the week, so... Last night, Kevin and I decided to have, like, a in-home date night, like, because we don't really feel like going out to restaurants.
Yep.
But so we got some steaks, and we made some like potatoes and asparagus, and we got some wine. And his birthday is next week from when this is recording, but we're gonna be with his family, and I was like, I don't want to take like your birthday brownie sundae with me, so I'm just gonna make it a week early. So we had all that, and we watched a movie. So we watched Airplane on Netflix, which neither of us had seen in a really long time. So it was, because I was like, I need something lighthearted. And it was really funny, because it's been a long time since I've sat down and watched it all the way through, and it was just so funny.
That's fun.
But yeah, that's what we did. And then I got a little wine drunk, and he watched baseball while I watched TikTok on the couch and then fell asleep. So...
Yeah, Courtney sent me a picture of her wine glass, and I'm like, is that a whole bottle of wine in there? Cause
I think I did end up having, because Kevin and I, between the two of us, finished off 2 bottles of wine.
Yeah.
So, oops. But yeah, so Jaclyn, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is the Netflix show Sweet Magnolias, which our friend Tiffany recommended because I was looking for a new show to watch.
And you won't watch Outlander, no matter how many times I recommend it.
I'll get there, guys. Well, I wanted to read the books too, you know, I'll get there. So it's on Netflix. They currently only have the first season, but I did read recently that they were just like approved for a second season. But it's like these 3 like adult females and like their lives and like their friendship, and it's just so like it just makes me appreciate the female relationships that I have in my life, you know. And it's just very, like, touching, you know? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's my perk of the week.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet.
It's good.
When did it come out? Wasn't it recently?
Yeah, I think this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember people talking about it. I was like, are they talking about the movie? Nope, that's Steel Magnolias. Never mind.
I know, I was like, is this sad? And then I was like, wait, no, this isn't the same thing.
Which I haven't seen Steel Magnolias either, but...
It's good. It's a good movie.
Maybe I'll watch it when COVID's over, because I don't need anything sad right now.
No, we're, other than our true crime podcast, we try to avoid sad things.
I don't need anything sad. Well, here, let me tell you this horrific story. Okay.
Yeah, that was like when I was trying to find a book to read, and I was like, okay, let me try to find something lighthearted, and then of the last 5 books I've read, 2 of them have been true crime related, so I'm like, well, okay, maybe not, but...
That's what happens to me. I'm like, oopsie.
Yeah. Just a reminder, we are still running our contest, so go like us on Instagram at Caffeinated Crimes Pod. Go leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can also email us at caffeinatedcrimespod@gmail.com. And if you are so inclined, you can go to patreon.com/caffeinatedcrimes, where you'll get access to everything we have put out there so far, as well as anything that we will put out there in the future. So we have some little goodies, some bonus episodes, Q&A, Google Hangout, all kinds of fun stuff over there. Yeah, I think that's all.
So go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.